Okay, we're live. Hi, everybody. Hi, James. Hi, David. I'm
Good
Adam
morning.
Zimbrewski with Hospiamo, and I'm here with two great gentlemen that I've gotten to know over the past few years. And I just got to say, I love that countdown. I don't know why I love it so much. I taught myself how to do it now 27 episodes ago. And I get excited about it because my brother is the co-host here. Unfortunately, my brother Matt with Agile Game Changers cannot make it today. Although he's taught me a lot and mostly pushed me onto this platform of doing something different this year, which we chose to do in May with our first episode, and now we're on episode number 27, and the topic is Boone, North Carolina, and economic development, community development, and how these beautiful worlds can collide in a really nice way as it relates to hospitality management, hotel ownership, and engaging with the people in a community. And I don't think that I had a better experience than when I was invited to do a project in Boone, North Carolina, now a couple years ago. And I'm a small town guy, from a small town up in Connecticut and Rhode Island, and so I was invited. The first person I met or I engaged was David, the president and CEO of the Boone Chamber of Commerce, Boone Area Chamber of Commerce. Shortly after that, I met James Milner with Appalachian Commercial Real Estate. And you guys, I'm not blowing smoke when I say it was a truly unique experience, something that I haven't forgotten, and I just am drawn back there, and I can't wait to do some more business in Boone as a result from the people up there. And so you guys are such at the core of it. I'll mention that we have also had a guest on, I think it's episode number 3 or 4 with Yolanda Adams. That was, I think it's the most watched or rewatched episode that we've had. And Yolanda is also based up in Boone, North Carolina. And so we talked a lot about Boone. I've mentioned Boone a lot in our conversations on previous episodes because I have many really great examples of what it's like to do business up mountain. And so welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for spending the time here with me.
We have a ratings goal apparently to beat Yolanda for most views. Yolanda, we're coming for you.
Yeah, we can do it. I'm confident.
Yeah, I think it's like 39 million views, so maybe we can break 40 million.
We're only good for about 27 million. Tough break.
Yeah, tough. So I'll mention real quick if throughout the conversation, if you're watching and listening to this, if you wanted to reach out to James or David, you can reach David Jackson at the Boone Area Chamber of Commerce website at boonechamber.com, right? And then James is the president and owner of Appalachian Commercial Real Estate, and that website is appalachiancre.com. How'd I do? Or no, maybe is it boonechamber.com or .org?
.com.
Well, you got it right.
Hey.
Yeah, busted it right through. Our emails.
I'll start with a quick, funny little story. And so I'm based in Charlotte, North Carolina. Boone's just a couple hour drive. I say up mountain, but I was not calling it up mountain back then. But there's a language up in Boone that I had to get used to, and I do a lot of translating in my business between hotel real estate investors and the operators and stuff. And man, I was on that side of having to listen a lot more than speak and learn. And so I was first taught something by a mutual friend and a family that I really enjoyed getting to know, and that's Fulton and Denise Lovin. And we were visiting together when I was up there a couple years ago, and I pronounced the way that most New Englanders do, the Appalachian Mountains. And she goes, whoa, 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 whoa. She goes, let me just explain something to you. And we were there. We were outside, and it was a beautiful day. The mountains were in clear view. And she goes, she said, "Say this. I'm going to throw an apple at you." That's what she said. She goes, "Say it." And I said, "I'm going to throw an apple at you." And she goes, "There you go. It's not Appalachian like that." And I said, "Oh, okay. All right." So I learned that was like my first little educational piece there. So
I always tell people it's like a door latch. If when I'm correcting them.
I always tell people I'll smack them in the face if they say it like that again. I'm just glad that had the railway still been here, I think Fulton would have probably sent you down the road to the next town. That is a quick identifier to see whether people are truly from here or not, or from the region or not. And we used to joke that all Appalachian had to do was beat Michigan back in 2007 to get some of the country to say the name right. And here we are, many years later, and we're still working on it.
Well, it's from an outsider's perspective, not having visited Boone before actually doing business in Boone. That is what it was known for me. Two things: Appalachian State University, ASU. Absolutely beautiful campus. I'm a baseball fan, and so when they opened up their stadium, I saw a bunch of pictures, and I was like, "Wow, that's beautiful! I would love to go up there sometime." And then there's the NCAA, the Michigan game. That was 2007.
That's right.
So it was a huge upset, and when Appalachian State beat Michigan. Was it at Michigan or at App State?
Yes, it was very much at Michigan. They were not in the mindset to come visit Boone just yet. Maybe one day, but not that day.
And in that year, they were top rated. They were top ranked.
They were 5th in the country. They were coming off of a kind of a season in 2006 where they left a little meat on the bone and brought back a considerable number of what would soon to be known NFL players, headlined by Chad Henne, their quarterback, Mike Hart at running back. Jake Long was left tackle in the league for many years. Mario Manningham, the list goes on and on. They were as stacked as a college football team has ever been. And App State was coming off their second of what would end up being 3 straight national championships. They had a dynamic quarterback in Armani Edwards, who, as we record this, will have his number retired at App State later this week, finally. And they had all kinds of momentum coming off of championship number 2. So Michigan didn't necessarily know a whole lot about App. It was the first time that Michigan had ever played an FCS opponent. And Lloyd Carr was in what would become his last year at Michigan, and App State kind of caught him sleeping, but brought a veteran team and was able to play with Michigan for 4 quarters and win the football game at the end. And that changed life around here. You can point back to September 1st, 2007 as a line in the sand here in Boone, North Carolina, where the community was viewed differently. Different eyes were on it and would eventually become normal and regular visitors here. And that certainly brought business opportunity, growth to the campus, and all of the associated things along with that. So that moment is etched in history on the sports side, but I think you could make the case that it means just as much, if not more, to the community's overall growth as well.
And I would just add to that one of the big things that day did was change enrollment and interest in the institution of App State, right? So as enrollment growth continually increased, the community had different needs from a development perspective, and it's been growing ever since. But it really did, like David said, put our little sleepy mountain town on the national map.
That's neat because it's just one game, right? And it but then whatever that was 16 years ago, it can have that much of an impact because of the kind of the global nature of NCAA football, right?
Yeah.
So for the perspective for the listeners out there, App State is about 21,000 or so students.
Just over 22 for the first time. So yeah, and that's about a 10,000 student growth in the last 20 years.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty
No new
impactful.
roads yet either, so that's been fun.
Well, and in addition to the overall growth, you have App State that recently purchased the Corning building or Corning headquarters down in Hickory. So now they've actually, for the first time, have an auxiliary campus to main campus, which is a game changer in itself. I think that the Hickory community overall has really meshed well with App State in meeting a need for people that don't necessarily have to come to main campus. That doesn't mean that main campus is absolved from all its problems. It still has housing, facility, faculty, staff issues, just as they would anywhere else.
Yeah, that's what I noticed being in the hotel industry, looking at just space as inventory that extends beyond overnight stays for 1 or 2 nights over a weekend into the call it the housing crisis that we've seen in many markets. I would imagine that before 2007, but then after, with all this growth, that it's. By the way, you both have been living there. Are you from Boone?
Go ahead.
No, we're both Triad guys. I'm from the much better city of Greensboro originally, but have lived here for 27 years now.
Okay.
I'm came from Winston-Salem, moved to Boone on my 19th birthday, and haven't left. So
Winston-Salem, of course, being Greensboro's little brother.
Known for Hanes and Michael Jordan sponsorships out there, right?
A couple of different ways to enjoy the tobacco products as well. I think you could probably throw on Winston-Salem, but Greensboro had the Greensboro Gators minor league basketball team. I think that might be about it.
You call it the triad, the triad region. It's interesting as it relates. So I come from what I'll say outside looking in, and how I perceive the area to be, and what I call it. And if it's in a conversation with me and my family, like, hey, let's go up to Boone for a weekend. We're usually the attraction is for the experience, shopping, the beautiful views, the mountain views, and even the drive up. I mean, I remember the first few times I drove up, it was exhilarating. I had to pull over on the side of the road because I was so distracted by the views. It gets a little windy up there.
Better than being car sick, I guess.
That's true. Yeah, it's like being car drunk without any alcohol. It's
That's
like,
right.
oh my God. Right. So what other besides App State, what do you think is the Boone area perceived as a what are you currently known for? What do you want to be known for?
Yeah.
Maybe in the future.
I think that's a good question. I think that certainly in the mountains of Northwest North Carolina, and again, we're about an hour and 45 minutes northwest of Charlotte, about that same distance from the Triad area, a little closer to Winston than Greensboro. But you're talking about being in an area where you've got 6 major metropolitan areas within a 3-hour drive of here. So I very much think that Boone is the Southeast backyard in many senses. From an outdoor economy perspective, we've got great paying attractions, but a lot of things that you can just get out of your car and go do for free. Hiking up the trails over at Grandfather Mountain, or find a waterfall. Certainly the ski industry is getting ready to get cranked up here, and with an El Nino winter forecast, it could be a great year for us this winter. But we have been known as a place that you come and do things. That made us a very safe destination back during the COVID pandemic, of a place that people felt like they could get outside, especially at a perfectly placed time on the calendar for something like that to occur from our perspective, where the weather was turning warmer, people could access some of those outdoor features in a time where everybody had to be away from everybody, right? So you could come to Boone and still be away. and that was very much part of our calling card. I think that within the spirit of the university too, we'd like to be known, as an area, especially in rural North Carolina, for innovation and innovative practices. We've got a few businesses that model that. Probably most notably, ECR Software Company is one of the leaders there. We've got a few in the biotech industry, like Maltox, or molecular toxicology, if you want to use their full name, is a business that's been based here for a number of years. And we've got little slices of greatness sprinkled around the community. And the reason I say that is because I think that a lot of people come here for a variety of influences and want to bring life here, whether that is a second home purchase, whether that was the COVID pandemic and the world being released to go wherever they needed to go, much to James's chagrin, of course, but that meant that you could go anywhere and do anything. And they came to a place where they were used to coming and found, this to be a place that you could run businesses remotely or have a remote career. And then you've got people like me who came here for the first time as a 7-year-old and knew as I was skiing down Appalachian ski mountain slopes for the first time, I wanted to come to school at App State. And shortly after that, I made the conscious decision, I guess, that I wanted to spend life here, and have an opportunity to at least start professionally here. So I think a number of people find themselves in that regard and bring whatever it is with them to find a way to make it work here.
Yeah, I would just add, what are we known for? I think probably at the top of the list is quality of life, right? So we have a community where our quality of life, our education system is top notch, right? And there's a lot of, as David mentioned, a lot of recreational activities that people participate in. And they enjoy it so much that they'll not worry about the freezing temperatures come winter time. What do we want to be known for? Personally, I'd like us to be known for a sustainable community outside of Appalachian State University, that we can have a thriving economy and keep growing employer bases to generate a better community. So, it's often said that it would be a very scary day if Appalachian State ever picked up and left Boone, North Carolina. What would Boone look like? It would look like a West Jefferson or a Newland, or worse. So it's we have to be able to stand on our own 2 feet as a community outside of our major economic driver, which is obviously the university.
Yeah, that's huge. It's I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's so having been called a somewhat of a business owner up there, or part of a small business partnership, I experienced that. And what I experienced was that you got this economic driver of App State, and then you also have I would say some medium-sized to some large businesses, and a lot of small businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of younger people, because of the university, that might graduate and leave, but then come back. You call them boonerangs.
Right? That's right.
Boonerangs. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I love that. And we'll talk about that in a second. It does take the effort of a individual to engage and make those connections between those economic drivers, right? So what's a pretty common theme on our show is related to the people in the field that manage properties or manage businesses for us in the hospitality business, such as a general manager that works at a hotel. If they are benefiting, if they are fortunate enough to have an opportunity to move to the Boone area to manage a hotel, and this is a new environment for them, what should their next steps be that would help that vision, James or David, to help to stand on its own from an economic development perspective, and to because it is all about the people that are taking those next steps to fully engage. What are I'm a success story there. I mean, I kind of, but I already knew, right? I had already been in other places. I knew to reach out to say, hey, who should I talk to? And I'm an extroverted person. And so I just kind of reach out and I see what happens. But that's not the case with everybody. It's like maybe they're a little bit introverted and they don't really go out there like blah and start meeting people. So you got any best practices if somebody's coming in to do business in Boone for the first time, or even existing business owners that haven't fully engaged yet in the economic community? What are some of the things that they might be able to do?
Yeah, I'm going to answer this a little differently than maybe you would expect it to be, because obviously the Boone Area Chamber of Commerce is one of those organizations that can do everything for someone that you just laid out there. But I think the advice that I would give, especially if you're moving from a metropolitan area into a rural area or a smaller area like Boone may happen to be, I think the people that have had the most success in getting integrated into the community are not the ones that came in not feeling like or not purporting themselves to be fixers. Not every small community needs to be like suburban Charlotte or part of the North Carolina core. They have their unique perspectives and personalities, and sometimes that's just fine for the community. Now, we all have our warts and we all have our opportunities where we could be better. But the people that come in like a bull in a china shop that say, just because I'm from Lower Manhattan means that I can solve all your problems. No, you can't. We've been trying for decades to solve problems, and that is less than genuine to feel like one person's influence on a particular day will mean that an area that has its own cultural reasons for change moving fast or slow, business reasons for change moving fast or slow, is all of a sudden just going to see the switch flipped. And I've seen a lot of reflux from folks that will come into rural America and feel like because they live in a zip code with a few more zeros in the population that they've got it all figured out. That can rub the local clientele and the local business leadership the wrong way very quickly and make it to where your best intentions are going to be met with an uphill climb. My advice is to listen, to absorb a little bit first and start to understand the community that you have invested your time and life in. And you may see some areas where you can have quick influence. Maybe that's professionally, maybe that's personally. I think a lot of folks here that move to the high country, they bring things with them that are beyond their professional skill sets that end up having more of an impact sometimes on the community than what they might perceive. And that's, engagement with philanthropic opportunities through the nonprofit scene up here, or a special service that maybe is highlighted in the side hustle that sometimes is necessary to make life work here, that turns into a mainstream business opportunity. So I think that the folks that have integrated themselves the best have been the ones that pause for a moment, take some stock of the area that they've moved to, start to understand some of the folks that do maybe work sometimes behind the scenes, more so in front of the scenes to make things work in a community like this, and attach yourself genuinely to those people through volunteer opportunities. Go join your local chamber, go join the local Rotary Club, whatever that happens to be. But do so with a genuine spirit about wanting to connect rather than come in and show everybody how you're smarter than everybody else might be.
Yeah, I would just add to that, I wrote down 2 words, patience and relationships. So patience is going back to what David said, that, we've been working, people try and come in and fix stuff. And we're like, hey, man, we've been working on that for 2.5 decades. You have to have a lot of patience in this community to just know that hopefully eventually things will change. But a lot of, and probably more importantly, is relationships. My mom always gave me a hard time staying in Boone and not moving back to a big city like Charlotte or even the Triad. And I said, Mom, I've spent a considerable amount of time building these relationships. I'm continuing to build relationships, and Boone and the Boone area is certainly a community where if you go have a conversation with someone and you shake their hand and say, this is what we're going to agree upon, you don't necessarily need to have that rendered to writing, because a handshake goes and looking someone in the eye goes a long way up here. So, I would just add those two things to what David said.
I was writing down a couple words too, and I wrote down commitment and contribution. And because that it's something that I identified with dealing with both of you and others. Quick personal story is, I'm not a big city guy, but I do have quite a lot of kind of extensive experience in hotels, like managing them and renovating and being a part owner and stuff like that. And so I'll mention our mutual friend Andrea Morton, who I adore. And I keep reminding her how much she taught me. She's like, I didn't teach you anything. Oh my God. Because when I walked into the property that she was managing, and I had an idea in my head of how to fix it, right? Or how to make it better or something. And I was wrong 98 times. If I had 100 ideas, I was wrong 98 of them. And I learned patience. I learned of how commitment and the contribution of your, not just money, not only money, but just your time and your dedication in how long it takes to build those relationships that's around trust, right? Because I'm sure that you have a lot of examples of people that have come and gone, and they didn't have that genuine spirit, David, like you said. They're coming for something that might be leaning towards selfish or leaning towards, I don't know, whatever's motivating them away from being patient and worthy of that kind of long-term relationship building practices. And so another relationship that I've adored is really getting to know is Lisa Cooper with Mass General Store and that family. Man, I'll tell you, from what I learned with the project that with Andrea Morton, and I'll mention John Cardonia also. John is a regular guest here. He's a building engineer, Navy veteran. You guys may have met him when we were working together up there. We all just learned so much together. And then David, I think you were the one to mention Lisa Cooper with Mass General Store. And again, from an outsider looking in, I was like, man, I love Mass General Store. Mass General Store has its own reputation that brings people to Boone. I thought that they were based in Boone, but they're based in Valley Crucis, right? Mm-hmm. Which is about maybe 15, 20 minutes away. But man, it just opened my world up to the idea of what a retail store can do for a downtown environment, but also the culture of community and economic development, because it's part of a family. And so as it relates to I wanted to mention Mass General Store, because so I live in Charlotte. I'll mention again, but what it did was for me with Mass General Mass General Store is also in Columbia, South Carolina, right? And they're in other places in this North and South Carolina area. And so I was on a hotel project, and I was visiting downtown Columbia, South Carolina. And I was looking on my maps, and I saw that Mass General Store was there. I was like, man. And it just gave me a reason to reach out to Lisa to say hello again, right? And this is a little while ago. And so there's this connection that has never left me, and it does have to do with my personality, right? I'm a genuine person. And I just really did love the people and the relationships that I met there. So let me refer back to that comment, or the word that I mentioned, boonerang. And so when I describe my kind of love that was created with that I fell in love with the area, mostly because of the people like you two gentlemen and the people that we're mentioning. But it did make me want to come back more often, even though the business reason went away a little while ago. But I do, I still blow up your cell phones every now and again and be like, hey, I want to, what else is going on? You know, can I get back up there? So you've called people that, well, what is a Boonerang? Maybe you can tell me. There's also a Boonerang festival that I was the inaugural event. It was at the 150th anniversary of Boone, right? So I'm very curious about that word, and maybe you can tell our millions of fans out there what that is and how it came about.
Sure. I want to go back to one thing that you said first before we get into the Boonerang definition. You were talking about Lisa Cooper, and I think the Cooper family is a prime example of what I was just talking about a few minutes ago about a family that moves to the area and observes first and acts second. Back in the mid 1980s, John Cooper and his wife Faye left a very lucrative career in Florida, seeking a new life for their family, and moved up to the Boone area and bought a defunct Mass General store out in Valley Crucis, the original location. They actually lived in the facility for a little while. If you've ever been there, their housing was all in the upstairs of what is the current original Mass General store, and they set out to provide a fresh life to an old brand that was tied to the Mast family, but the Coopers are not part of that. They came up for a business opportunity, but they very quickly learned in the first few months of being in Boone full time that nonprofit and philanthropic connection was very much a part of how people ingrain themselves into the community, whether you were born here, moved here, what have you. A lot of times when you meet somebody in Boone, it's who are you, what do you, where do you work, and what nonprofit do you support? And those are the three questions, maybe not necessarily always asked in that order. So they found out very quickly that for them to be successful in coming from outside the market, they were going to have to find a way to utilize their store to benefit others, whether that was the staff that they hired, whether that was the community organizations in and around Valley Crucis. They got very involved in the Valley Crucis Historical Preservation Commission. They got involved in a number of local nonprofits. They got involved in the schools. They got involved with App State. And they showed that they were beyond just a business. They were a family that was deeply invested in the community where they now live, and hope that their children will find life and their employees will find a reputable employer that will take care of them, and we're able to benefit from that. But that was not accidental. That was very carefully constructed as part of their business plan, was to come there and see where their opportunities to plug in may be, not try to force what they may have seen in another career or seen in another community. So to kind of take it back on the tracks here to Boonerang, they were not Boonerangers because they were not from here originally. Boonerang has to do with being here, whether you're a native or whether you came to school here or however you came here. Maybe you leave here, you graduate App State, you move away from home, but then you find a way to come back. And a lot of App State grads find themselves in that position. And part of that's due to housing and the cost of living here early in someone's career. They have to go and get a little professional runway underneath them, find a way to make a buck or two or maybe a lot more right now, and then find a way to professionally come back here, or even come back here as part of a retirement plan. So the action of coming back to the high country is known as booneranging. The town of Boone, as you mentioned back as part of the 150th birthday celebration, had been long looking for a festival to call their own. And we have a number of very successful festivals in and around our community. Woolly Worm Festival and Valley Country Fair just finished up back in October. Merle Fest occurs just down the road from here, really about 30 miles in Wilkesboro. But Boone wanted something for themselves. So the number of folks, including Mark Freed, who we all know with the Town of Boone Cultural Resources Department, got the idea to create a Boonerang Festival. And all of the musical acts and artists that were a part of that were all people that had a tie to the Boone music scene or art scene previously. So when you look at the T-shirt from the first year, it looks like a burnt CD cover from 1998 of all of the bands that used to play here and have influence here. And that, of course, attracted people back to visit from that same era. It was like a 1998 reunion that weekend. And now they've had a successful year 2, already well into the planning stages for year 3. And that is the seed for a lot of folks, especially in that age range, to start thinking about how they might be able to complete the Boonerang themselves if there were only anywhere for them to live.
It also didn't hurt, David, that you ordered up Boone Area Chamber of Commerce weather days for Boone.
We try.
Boomerang. So
we try. Sometimes the request is processed in the order it was received. So we struck gold that week for sure.
One of the things I wanted to add to your discussion on John and Faye, one of the things that I love about MAST as an organization is, they're one of the few companies in Boone that is doing an ESOP program. So, and really trying to find creative ways to retain employees within their organization. So, we can talk about the housing crisis and all the barriers to entry all day long. It is difficult for, I think, one of the reasons that this Boonerang occurs is because there's a difficulty in the student that graduates App State that may have a local employer that they work for or want to work for, and then the roadblock immediately is housing, right? Based on the limited income that they receive in a postgraduate environment. So we certainly, Adam, I would say, we have our fair share of problems, just like any other community. Both David and I are well aware of what those problems are. And I think that at the end of the day, the community is very well poised and motivated to try, as it's ever been in the 20 plus years that I've been here, to try and start solving some of those problems. I think some of the momentum that we have had even in the last 6 months shows some really positive signs that we're going to address housing. We're going to address childcare. We're going to, start being more community centric.
You mentioned the ESOP. That was a topic of one of our previous episodes, employee stock ownership, and the Mass General Store is employee owned. And for the people out there that doesn't know what that means, it's like Publix. My son just got a job at Publix, and he's an employee owner. Like he owns a little piece of Publix, and it's they have an ESOP program, and so it's a beautiful thing. And like you said, David, it's when there's a commitment from a family like the Coopers, they decided to do that, and they decided to engage, and they decided to make that happen, rather than just talk about it. And I saw a really good clip of can't remember which podcast it was that I was watching, but they said, and I agree with this, that culture is done and it's lived. It's not talked about. We all have our core values and things like that, but you could put it on the wall, but unless it's lived and it's part of the everyday life of the quality of life of your family or your business, it doesn't matter. And that it's I love that history of when I experienced Mass General Store for the first time a couple years ago, that it had this 40-year history of what it was and the Cooper family, and then it got there. Very similar to the 2007 football game. It's like the upset with App State and Michigan. It's like when something like that happens, it's a milestone or maybe a threshold moment. It's not the right word I'm thinking of. Watershed moment, maybe. And then it's like the people that are there, they bind together And those bonds, when it's genuine, I will say that I've experienced it myself. It doesn't go away. It's a really beautiful thing.
It's funny you say that. One of the things that and I love how this has become like a Cooper family infomercial here. I hope they're paying you well. I'm gonna take this as a receipt to them next time we need to talk about chamber membership for sure. But one of the things that comes up though in the story and really what kind of launched Mass General Store into what now as dozen locations in 4 states, kind of enterprise. One of the very first things that they did in terms of kind of that community engagement back in the mid 80s, back when the old Mass store had closed, along with that, the U.S. Post Office in Valley Cruces closed at the same time because the building was no longer being used. And one of the first things that the Coopers found as they began to revitalize the store and renovate and get ready to open, they were asked by community members to bring the post office back. And now that is part of the charm of the original store, but it is a functional U.S. Post Office that was so important to the residents in that rural part of our rural county that they had that identifier, that they had the community that came with going to check their mailbox every day and seeing people, a lot of those folks elderly back from the hollers, that was their social interaction, was that post office. And they said to the Coopers, hey, it would be really nice if you brought this back. Now, could you imagine if the first thing you heard from a community when you go to open a business in a community is do this thing, add this thing to your business that has nothing to do with your business just to appease everybody around you? And they did, and it changed the game for them. That was the first sign for the community, and again, a very insulated part of a not overly populated area, that these people were for real. That they said, hey, yeah, this isn't going to do anything for our bottom line, but we know that as a community pillar and beacon, we need to do things that are important for this area. So yes, they opened the post office, and now when you walk in there on a Saturday, especially in their busy seasons, you'll see people pointing at the folks that are checking their mail. Like, look, real people that live here. It's like you become a zoo exhibit almost, because you're there doing what that store was known for generations. And now descendants of families that have lived in that area for years can go and check their mailbox just like their parents or grandparents may do. And that just ties into the story, but that came from a very genuine place to begin with.
They listened, right? And they were, they put it out there and they listened, and they didn't come in with any.
And saw a relatively low risk opportunity for them to make a difference. That wasn't going to require them to invest a bunch of money. It was just, let's open this side of the door and dust off these things. And yes, let's call it good. And their success is largely part of similar stories like that in the communities they serve now.
Yeah. There was no intention to make this an infomercial about the Cooper family and Mass General Store. I start with like a blank page. You and I, we spoke for 5 minutes, and I love how this conversation went. We can start to wrap up here. I will tell you that I, selfishly speaking, just the idea of having you guys to see your faces and to hear your voices and to speak to you and to listen to you. This is a joy for me every time that we speak. And so I know that you're busy, and so thanks for taking the time out of your day to make this happen. David, I mentioned something that you mentioned that I really enjoyed going to the Boone Chamber of Commerce economic kickoff that you have every January. You have another one coming up. Is that right? Is it in January?
Yeah, that's right. January 10th, we'll have our annual event that serves as obviously, like many communities do, the economic kickoff to the year. We're fortunate here in our community to have a well-known regional economist in Dr. Harry Davis, who has been predicting the economy here in North Carolina for decades now, and does so with a locally focused lens because this area is so unique. A lot of times legislatively, people will look at Western North Carolina and just think that everything is Asheville and we all get the table scraps. But because of our tourism economy, because of the university's influence and some other things, Northwest North Carolina's got its own vibrant economy, and because of that, needs a little bit of further scrutiny when it comes to predicting economic fortunes or downturns or something in between. So Harry has been great about providing that as part of our annual events, and we'll do so again this year. We'll also be joined this year by Gary Salamito. Gary is the president and CEO of the North Carolina Chamber of Commerce. And the NC Chamber has done a great job over the years serving as an advocacy platform for communities large and small throughout the state of North Carolina. Of course, North Carolina for 2 years in a row now has been listed by CNBC as the top state for business in the country. And the North Carolina Chamber, along with Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina, the North Carolina Rural Center, those are 3 agencies that have really done the heavy lifting for that kind of acclaim. And to have Gary come and speak to our crowd about what he sees in rural North Carolina and what he wants to hear as advocacy points moving forward. I think the North Carolina Chamber does a great job of not resting on old talking points. And I would encourage others to think, especially as you advocate for things in your community, don't advocate the things that were 5 years ago's bullet points. Think about what is relevant now. And so the chamber goes around and does that kind of thing in local communities, and Gary will be front and center for that. So again, that's January 10th, and that's an annual thing that we enjoy and hope the snow stays away that particular day so we can get people in and out of the parking lot and get them a great program around lunchtime.
James, how about yourself? How does this next year look for Boone and commercial real estate in 2024? Any do you give it a grade?
At that at the event that David was talking about in January, I said I guess made a bold claim that transactional activity would be significantly down. I think that has proven to be true. I think that in short summary that will remain the same, right? That due to high interest rates, still a disconnect between buyers and sellers, the lending environment, it's going to be difficult for transactions to occur. And, while transactional activity may be down, the one point that I mentioned last year that I really don't think people took to heart was, we have this association of realtors called the High Country Association of Realtors. And in its heyday was close to 800 members, right? So it's 4 counties, don't get me wrong, Watauga, Avery, Ashe, Allegheny County. But that's a lot of people in the high country. Their main profession is to sell real estate. And if we'll see in January when the renewals come forth, how big of a hit that membership is going to take. I think that in itself is a true indicator to my industry. We're as a company, we're diversified in business lines. So when sales and leasing is short, we typically have appraisal work or consulting work to do. So we're in it for the long haul. This isn't the first market cycle that I've been a part of. Survived the 07, 08 financial collapse, and this is in a post-COVID world, no different. But as an old boss of mine said, only the strong survive. So I'm grounded, and fortunate to be positioned to weather storms. But a lot of companies in Boone may not be in the same position. So my advice to my fellow entrepreneurs is keep stashing cash away, because that cash on hand is going to be very relevant in the next 6 to 12 months, in my opinion.
And diversify, as you said. Consider looking into other revenue streams. And are you making a statement today that you're going to open up a post office downstairs in your office?
No substation of Boone, of Boone, Maine here at Chuck's building.
Well, good. We will. We'll end it on that, gentlemen. Again, thank you very much for your time. Please visit boonechamber.com, Appalachian CRE.com. Look for David Jackson, James Milner. I'm Adam with Hospiamo. Shout out to my brother and co-host who couldn't make it, Matt Zimbrusky with Agile Game Changers. And happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And thank you so much, you guys, for this little walk down memory lane, but also a view into the future. And I hope to see you again very soon.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, guys.